You went all in 2 years ago. You know, so when you go all in, there is no plan B. Like there is no plan B. The eggs were in all baskets. You know, Lawrence understands that. I think the ownership understands that. They can't allow him to walk. They have to be 100% behind him in his injury, and they have to say this guy can come back and do it again because he's already come back from injury and played at an All-Star and MVP level. But they went in all in 2 years ago when they signed both of those guys um, in the free agency. So you can't turn back now. there's no turning back now, brother.
Kenny, let me say this. I know Kawhi's a two-time champion, but while I got you on the show, let me also reiterate a position that I've echoed in the past. I have no problem recognizing Kawhi Leonard as one of the top 5 players, and the brother is just big time. There's no denying that. He's a two-time champion. We get that. But, Kenny, I got serious doubts as to whether or not I would want to invest with him long-term. You talk about a 1 or 2 year deal, that's different. But long-term, speak to us a second about culture in the sport of basketball. When you instigate load management, when you play when you want to play, practice when you want to practice, and you're injury prone, how can that build the proper culture for you, particularly if you're the Los Angeles Clippers? What do you say to that?
Well, they're handcuffed. They handcuffed themselves only because he won a championship doing that in Toronto. He was load management, coming in and out, practicing at certain times, sitting out games, and he won a championship, and he was healthy down the stretch. Then, if you say, I'm going to only offer you a 1 or 2 year deal, a 3 year deal, there's 20 other teams that would clear cap space and say, I'll take that chance, including a team in the same building, probably. We'll say, we'll take that chance. You know, I think that they put themselves in a position that he's won that way. If he had played at Toronto and they didn't win, then you could be like, well, hey, guy, we gotta step back. We gotta give you like 3 year deal. We gotta see if you could practice. But since he's done it, and he's done it at the high level, and won the championship doing it, I think you're handcuffed to say this is the way it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Kenny, they left the good stuff for me, paying it forward. Tell us more about the Jet Academy. We talked to you about it when you launched it. We were pandemic, July 2020. What's going on with that?
6,000 members, virtual basketball instruction. You get the best. That's what we're doing here. That's why I'm here, not just on the scoring end, but in terms of the pace of the game. It allows LeBron to be a finisher a lot instead of always the facilitator. And so, running that break, you have LeBron on the wing instead of with the ball a lot of times now. That's going to be a difficult situation for a lot of teams to handle.
I feel you on that, Kenny. It's always good to see you, my brother. You know that. I feel you. I feel you on that. Here's where my reservation lies as it pertains to winning a championship, because I definitely think they'll be the Final Four in the NBA, but winning a championship. Couple of things. Number one, that pace of play you just alluded to. LeBron James is phenomenal of a conditioned athlete as he is. He's no young spring chicken any longer. And so that pace of play, that's not necessarily a guarantee in my estimation. That's number one. And number two, their perimeter shooting. Because we all know that when you talk about beating a Golden State, when you talk about beating the Clippers, when you're talking about beating the Nets potentially in an NBA Finals, you got to be able to shoot the rock, not just from the perimeter, but from the free throw line. And as I pointed out early in the show, LeBron James shot 69% from the free throw line last year. Russell Westbrook shot 65%. Kyrie was at 92. James Harden's at 86. KD was at around 87, 88. Those things matter. What do you say to that?
I'd say the one thing that, for perimeter shooting, I thought I was a good shooter. Until I got to Houston, I became a great shooter, because you go to Houston and you get an extra second because they're double teaming great players. And so when you're playing with a guy like LeBron and Russell and AD, if you're a good shooter, you become great, because now you're going to be left open. It was the first time in my life, Steven and guys, that I was left open. So there are certain guys who probably had never been left open that long that will have, opportunities. If you think of guys like P.J. Tucker when he was in Houston, and even this year, they get shots and they get an extra second to think about it and to really set their feet. So that actually makes you a better shooter playing with those guys who are maybe a marginal guy who comes in and say he can knock down shots. Then all of a sudden he comes there and they say, man, he's a prolific three-point shooter. It's because you got extra time.
Kenny, let's say they get two pure shooters to round out the starting five, right? Because they still got the sign and trade rights for Schroeder, and they have Talen Horton-Tucker. They have some stuff that may not work on this team, but other teams might be interested in. I look at the Nets. The difference is offensively, all three of their big three are, for their size, among the greatest scorers ever from anywhere, right? That's not the Lakers. But if the Lakers round out the starting five with a couple of pure shooters, is that enough, or does the shooting need to be distributed better among the guys who are going to touch the ball as you know, the most, like Westbrook and LeBron and AD? Does that give the Nets an advantage if they should meet in the finals?
Are we already negating the fact that the Milwaukee Bucks won the
Yeah, because they only won because the Nets got hurt. Come on, Kenny.
Think that they're going to be back anywhere? I just feel that, you know, there's a lot of things that you could say in terms of talent. If you look on paper, those two teams have, you know, some talent, but they're most talented roster assembled. However, like we said, they're not in there. This is not Russell Westbrook 8 years ago. This is not LeBron 8 years ago. This is not, you know, even pre-injury for Kevin Durant. Like, you know, if Kevin Durant is in the Olympics 5 years ago, they don't lose a game. Like, he could take over all of those games. So this is not the same kind of guys. And, you know, youthfulness, energy, playing together, that means something. So I wouldn't just hand those two teams, the East and the West, at all. I think that they're going to have to work for it. They have to stay injury-free. They're going to be playing that saving him for this game. And that gets you out of rhythm. And I thought that got the Lakers out of rhythm this year. And we'll see if it doesn't do it this next year.
Russell Westbrook, Kenny Smith, fourth team in 4 years. Teammates, Kevin Durant, Reggie Jackson, Serge Ibaka, Victor Oladipo, Paul George, James Harden again, Bradley Beal. No championship to show for it. And now has got LeBron James and Anthony Davis as his teammate. At the start of this show, I talked about how, because he's so phenomenal and because he's a surefire first ballot future Hall of Famer, all of those things taken into consideration, he will never be under more pressure than he will be this year. He won't care, but that's the situation. Am I right or wrong about that?
Well, you know, I don't think not having a championship dampens your legacy, but it definitely adds to it. Like, it definitely adds to it. The reason I'm on TNT and sitting here with you at ESPN right now is because I won 2 championships. I have a perspective that's going to be different and that has a finality to it. So, yes, winning a championship for Russell Westbrook, does it help his career? Yes. Does it dampen it if he doesn't? No, he's done enough individually. But it makes him, when you walk around with that championship, that C on your left shoulder, like, that's a different perspective.
But Kenny,
and a different thought process.
Yeah, but I'm asking you, coming into this season, I don't know of anybody who'll be under more pressure than him because of those things I outlined. What do you say to that?
Brooklyn Nets. Okay. I say the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets are, because you assemble this roster, then it wasn't healthy. You come back, you got to win it. You got to be in the finals. You got to be there, because to me, then it's like, is this really what we should have done? And are we going to, you know, are these guys going to stay?